Hello everyone, this is my first project for the Ngss project in our Science Ed 304 class. My name is Donna Hansen, and the standard that I am presenting on today is 1-ESS1-2. This standard is to make observations at different times of year to relate the amount of daylight to the time of year. The objectives for this lesson are that students will explain the cause of variances in daylight, and students will predict future variances. What I mean by variances is just the fact that, daylight lasts longer in summertime, it's shorter in wintertime, and it's a gradual change from both of those days. So key ideas that you're going to want to, encourage your students to really grasp is that there are patterns in the sun and the earth that you really want to ingrain how the earth moves, especially in relation to the sun. And there is actually a visual example, a modeling exercise that you can do that will be included in this activity. You want them to know what sunrise and sunset are. You really want them to have like a solid idea of that before you get too far into the activity. You want them to know why seasons change and why daylight length changes with the seasons. So some vocabulary that is important for this unit, and you can present this at the beginning, you can present this with the modeling exercise, you can really present this at any time, but you want to make sure that you are emphasizing that it is important these students understand these terms and can use them accurately in sentences. So these terms are daylight, which is the amount of time in a 24-hour period that the sun is out and shining. Sunrise, which is when the earth rotates to the point where the sun is visible. Sunset, where it rotates to the point where the sun is no longer visible. Orbit, which is the pattern the earth follows around the sun. Rotation, which is the spinning of the earth on its axis, which is the middle point of the earth. So I like to start science-based activities with journaling. It really gets the gears turning in students' heads. It gets them thinking about the topic in a deeper context of just a discussion could maybe go. So you want them to write something that they already know about sunrise and sunset, and it can be anything. It can be the sun rises in the morning and it sets at night. It could be, that sunrises are, more of a pinkish yellow and sunsets are more of a orange and red. It can be anything that they already know. And then you want them to write something that they want to know, anything they want to learn that they may hope to find answers to in this investigation. You're also going to want to have some safety warnings. Now, there's no equipment or experimentation in this activity, but there are 2 points that you should really drive home. First off, looking directly at the sun is harmful. When you talk to first graders about something new, they're going to be so excited, and they're going to want to apply this knowledge outside of the classroom as often as possible. And in this context, that probably means they're going to want to watch the sun. They have to understand that looking directly at the sun is harmful to their retinas and could cause permanent damage. It's also important that your students know that while the internet is a useful tool, it can be very dangerous if used incorrectly. So whether you have this internet safety talk for this specific exercise or you've already had it, it's important that you drive home the fact that they have to be careful on the internet. So the website we are using for this activity is called timeanddate.com, and as you can see here, it has sun graphs of different regions, and it shows this lighter blue is daylight times, and the darker blue is nighttime, and it tracks the time that the sun rises and sets every day, and this data goes all the way back to 1980, which I think is incredibly impressive. So anytime you introduce a new website, especially with young learners, you want to guide your students through the features they'll be using and sort of show them how to navigate between them. So let's do that together right now. I'm following the link. It takes us to the main page of the website. So up here, you're going to hit the search bar, and I'm going to do Decatur, Illinois, because that's where I am currently. Okay. So you have them type in the town or region that they're looking for. Go to the page of the town. All right, and then it pulls up this different tabs. So go to sun and moon and click on sunrise and sunset, and it'll take you, here you see that graph again. It takes you to the page that just details all about the sunrise and sunset of Decatur. Now this is a lot of information and it might be a little overwhelming. You're going to want to show your students exactly what it is they're looking for. So let's click a date, May 7th. You want your students to be able to find the sunrise and sunset time, which is located right here in this daylight section. The sun rose on May 7th at 5:48 a.m. and it set at 7:56 p.m. Alright, so now that we kind of understand how to use this website, let's talk about our data. You're going to have your students investigate the sunrise and sunset times in different regions. I chose the dates of the solstices and the equinoxes. Pardon me if I'm saying those wrong, but May 21st, December 20. Oh, that's out of order. It's June 21st and December 21st, and then March 21st and September. Sorry. So I think those are good dates to use because they kind of, shape the graph. So you're going to want to have in this worksheet, you're going to want to have spaces for the students to select their own areas to investigate. You really want the students to be able to lead this investigation as much as they can. Selecting the dates, for them, it might be a little difficult because they don't understand quite exactly what it is that they're looking for and how to look for it. So that's why I decided to choose the dates. But the area can be anywhere. You also want to have space, obviously, for them to fill in their data. I think it's important to have blank space so that your students can do thought mapping and make calculations to sort of understand the data that they're being presented with. And finally, it's important to have language that is simplistic, explicit, and easy to follow. I really think that it's important for you guys to consider your struggling readers and your foreign language students when considering the language of a worksheet like this. Next is a pair and share. After your students have collected their data, pair them up. Have them look for patterns in their data, look for consistencies in their partner's data, discuss possible theories as to why their data behaves the way it does. Basically, just have them talk about the data. Whether or not you're guiding this talk, they're still going to discover things that they wouldn't have really understood if they had just taken the data without discussing it. Next is the visual example. If this seems a little abstract, maybe doesn't quite make sense in your head, I will have a link in the post on the Moodle to a YouTube video of me demonstrating this modeling activity. So for this activity, you'll need a globe of the Earth, a lamp that is bright and allows light to be shown at all angles, some sort of circle, and a way to mark your place on the globe. I used a sticky note that I kind of folded up accordion style so that students could see it at any angle. It's important that all students in the classroom are able to see this point because it is the focal point that you're going to want their attention to be on. So you're going to want to point out that point where your classroom is labeled on the globe. Show it to students, make sure that they know, hey, this little orange guy, that's us. Show that the Earth spins on an axis, that this axis is diagonal. It's important that they understand the diagonal axis because it contributes heavily to the changing of seasons. So now you're going to turn on the lamp and explain that it's sort of, demonstrating the sun. It's acting as the sun for this exercise. And walk around the circle to show an orbit. Now ask your students again to keep their eye on that classroom and spin the globe while walking the orbit. Now discuss as a class. In this discussion, you're going to want to listen for a few key points that can really help you understand that your students understand what you've just shown them. Listen for them saying that the sun doesn't actually move, but the Earth is moving. This is something that younger students can struggle with, especially because, we're on the Earth. We feel like, this is where we are, everything around us is moving. And with the, name of sunrise and sunset, there's an implication there that the sun is doing the moving. But you want them to understand that the sun is staying in place, it's stationary, the Earth is moving and spinning and going crazy. So you also want to notice them say that there are times that the classroom gets longer exposure to the sun than others, like when it's facing a certain way and spinning at a certain space, it's going to have more exposure or longer exposure than a different time. Finally, you want them to understand that these different exposure times directly correlate to the Earth's position in its orbit. You can help students reach these conclusions if necessary, but hopefully they're going to point them out on their own. Next up in this exercise is sun graphs, and this is personally my favorite part. So as a class, you're going to fill in the title and the color key. You're going to guide students through filling out data that's already been collected, and then have your students independently finish the graph with their predictions. These pictures are a little small, but thankfully the next 3 slides are them zoomed up, so let's take a look. So first off, we have this blank graph. It has no title, no name, no date, no colors, no nothing, just the bare bones, basically, of this graph. So the first piece that you're going to do with the students is have them fill in their names and the date and the title of the graph, and then have them choose their colors for their color key, and you're going to have them graph points that, and so I did mine on Decatur, and these are points that I found through that website that, you know, are actual sunrise and sunset times for those dates. So then, independently, the students are going to make a prediction, and they don't have to use points. It's more of a curve, you know, just kind of a general prediction of how this pattern is going to continue. And you're going to want them to differentiate their colors between their predictions and their observed data. And you're going to end this activity with a wrap-up journal. Have your students reread their journal entries from before the activity. Then you're going to have them respond to the following prompts. What surprised you about sunrises and sunsets? Was your theory correct? And how did you make your predictions? You're going to assess the graphs based on the students' following of directions, the logicality of their predictions, and the neatness and overall clarity. Now, I think it's important to note that I use the term logicality instead of accuracy. We're not looking for kids to be able to, yep, this is why, this is how, this is what's going to happen, because they're in first grade, and young kids have always surprised me with their ability to think creatively outside the box, and I just can't even imagine the wonderful things, the wonderful ideas they're going to have. As long as you can sort of follow the path that their thought process took, I would say assess it well, because, you know, there's logicality there, there's reason, there's motivation that makes sense behind the answer they gave. The overall assessment to, you know, kind of assess their general understanding of the concept, you're going to have one-on-one conversations where you discuss, you know, so why do you think it is that the sun rises earlier as the year goes on? Or, you know, why does the daylight last longer? If you have these one-on-one conversations and let the students put this idea into their own words, you'll really get a grasp of what they're understanding. You're going to observe them as they interact with each other and as they discuss and as they write in their journals. You're going to view their participation. If a student is, you know, just kind of sitting there looking a little lost, you can pretty easily assess that they may not understand what's going on. Finally, you're going to want to assess those journal entries. Now, I'm not talking about looking for spelling and looking for punctuation and capitalization and all that fun stuff. You're looking for just, you know, some indication that they really get what they're writing about. So I think that the way to go from there is to have a wrap-up discussion, you know, just kind of talk about everything we learned, talk about what we know, talk about all the fun stuff that we just learned about the sun and its setting and rising and its patterns and all that fun stuff. You're going to want to answer any questions the students might still have because, you know, they're curious. They're going to have new questions all the time. And lastly, you're going to display the graphs in your room. I think this is one of the most important parts because when a student sees their work up on the wall, it not only shows them that they have an important place in the community of the classroom, but it also proves as a physical demonstration of the fact that they just learned something new. And for a young learner, that can be the most exciting thing. Well, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys can use this activity in your classrooms one day. Thanks so much.